Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin iti namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschat Deshatarine Jayo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Today is the second part, that is second lesson, chapter number 15. 13 and 14 chapters were 3.1. Today is 3.2, that is Purushottama Yoga, the yoga of the Supreme Person. Shri Radha Govind ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Gaurnitai ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai. In the last lesson, we have seen 13 and 14 chapter, entanglement of the living entity in the three modes and how to transcend these three modes. And personally influenced by the modes of passion and ignorance, how the person gets entangled, and how to come out of this passion and ignorance to the mode of goodness. And then statements from Srila Prabhupada for 14th chapter. So what he says here, anybody would like to read can raise their hand. Gunashri Mataji.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
In his constitutional position, a living entity is above the three modes of material nature, but association with material nature entangles him in the different modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance. Due to the association of these three modes,
his desire to dominate the material world is there. Yeah. Thank you, Mataji.
yes.
Hare Krishna. The end of 14th chapter, in that Krishna says that I am the source for the Brahma Jyoti. Brahmano hi pratishtaham amritasya avyayasya cha shashvatasya cha dharmasya sukhait saikantikasya cha. So Krishna is the origin for the Brahma Jyoti. And he also told in the previous chapter that one who has unalloyed devotion to him, mamcha avyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate, sagunan samatitaitan brahma boyaya kalpate. So by engaging in the service of the Lord, devotional service, one can easily come to the platform of Brahma Bhuta stage. And Krishna is the source of this Brahma Bhuta stage. That means he is telling Bhakti is the greatest. Through the Bhakti, one can liberate oneself from this entanglement of three modes of material nature. So by engagement in the devotional service in full Krishna consciousness, he is immediately situated in the transcendental position, and his unlawful desire to control material nature is removed. So that is the conclusion that we got from the 14th chapter. Now, gaining the attachment to Krishna and losing the attachment towards this material world, that is detachment, vairagya towards this material world, and bhakti for the Lord. That is the purpose of 15th chapter. In 15th chapter, we are going to study about the nature of this material world compared to the spiritual world. The Banyan Tree and the Purushottama Yoga, chapter number 15. This is one of the shortest chapter in Bhagavad Gita. First 12th chapter is 12, only 20 shlokas are there. In this chapter also there are only 20. First 5 shlokas speaks about the banyan tree, and then transmigration 6 to 11. And then Krishna is the maintainer from 12 to 15. Finally, 16 to 20, that's last 4 shloka, is the summary of Vedanta Sutra. Now, if the bhakti is the conclusion of all the philosophy that we discuss, then what is the need for Vedas? Why do we need Veda? That is explained in this last part, that Vedanta Sutra or Vedanta Sutra is the essence of Veda. Its purpose is to understand Krishna. Vedeshta sarvair ahameva vedyaha. And in 3 shloka, 16, 17 and 18, Krishna gives the essence of the Vedanta Sutra. All the Vedas, whatever it is telling, Krishna is going to give the essence of it. Now let us start with the banyan tree, first part. The entanglement of this material world is compared here to a banyan tree. All of it, please open the Bhagavad Gita book. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Urdhvamulam Adashakham Ashwatham Prahuravyayam Chandamsi Yasya Parnani Yastam Veda Sa Veda Ved. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is said that there is an imperishable banyan tree that has its roots upwards and its branches down, and whose leaves are the Vedic hymns. One who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas. So this is the tree which is upside down. Now, how can the tree be upside down? It's an analogy that is used here, because this material world is a perverted reflection of spiritual world. Here, whatever we can see, it is present in the spiritual world also, but without the problems, that is the difficulties which are inherent in the material world. In the spiritual world, people are self-effulgent, they are eternally living, and there is no birth, death, old age, disease, all these problems are not there. But what is the similarity? Here, we are in this material world also, we are trying to live, and in the spiritual world also, people are living. In this material world, we have our senses through which we can do so many kinds of activities. Even in spiritual world also, people have the spiritual senses through which devotees are serving the Lord. Rishikena Rishikeshu Sevanam Bhakti Ruchate. So there are similarities as well as there are differences. We have one more picture of this same analogy. Here you can see this is the spiritual world, and this below what you can see, this is the material world. In the spiritual world, you can see the devotees, that is, you can see Radha Krishna, and it's a very pleasant environment. But if you see in this material world here, this is the Brahma. Lord Brahma is the person who is at the highest planet among the 14 planetary systems. And he has created this entire material world, all the living entities. The body comes from the Lord Brahma. And at the top, you can see the liberation, that is Brahma Jyoti, which is surrounding the spiritual world. And there are many things that we can understand here. The leaves of the banyan tree are the Vedic hymns, and these trunks are the economic development, the Chaturvida Purushartha, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. These are the trunks of this tree. And there are pious activities and impious activities that we can see here. These are the pious acts, and here it is impious act that is visible here. So like that is more clearly explained in the next. So if you want to see the upside down tree, then it is the reflection in which we can see the tree. So reflection means there should be water or the reflecting material. So what is the reflecting material here? That is the desire. Desire is the water or the river in which the tree is getting reflected. That means this material world is there for us as long as we have material desires. And when we transfer our material desires into spiritual desire, then this banyan tree, which is upside down banyan tree, it does not exist for the liberated soul. He will go back to the kingdom of God. And Urdhva Mula, the roots are upwards, and Adha Shaka, its leaves and trunk are downwards, branches are downward, and its leaves are the Vedic hymns. And tips of these leaves are the senses, and twigs are the sense objects. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, these are the fruits of this material world, material tree. And how to cut off this material world or this upside down tree? It is Asanga Shastrena Dridena Chitwa. With an axe of Asanga, Vairagya, a person can cut off the banyan tree that is present. Cut down this strongly rooted tree with the weapon of detachment. So that is how one can cut down this material world. Anybody would like to read can raise their hand. Chitra Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Urdhva Moolam. Just like if you have to keep yourself, the legs are up and the head down. Somebody keeps you like this. How long you will feel comfortable? If somebody takes your legs and catches you, your head down, then it's not very comfortable. So this whole material world is like that. Urdhva Moolam. The Moolam should have been down, but it's up. Therefore, it is uncomfortable. Hare Krishna.
Continue, Mataji.
Yeah. Another explanation is that it is pervaded reflection. We have got experience of the Urdhva Moolam. On the bank of a river or the bank of a pond, tree is standing. But the reflection we find that the same tree has become Urdhva Moolam and Adha Shaka. So by this statement, Krishna says that it's not real. That reflection in the water of the tree is not real. Real tree is up. Similarly, real enjoyment, real varieties, everything is in the spiritual world. It's simply reflection. It's not fact. Therefore, our enjoyment here is called Maya or illusion. Bhagavad Gita 15.1. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. When a living entity is present in this material world, he is trying to get the experience of spiritual environment. Whenever we are coming out of this illusion of being in the material world, we get shocked. How is it? Whenever we see some breaking of the body, or somebody dies, or any unpleasant things happens, the person gets shocked. That means the actually in a normal life, whenever we are living in a experience of spiritual world. We think that we don't die, even though we see so many people are dying in front of us. We think that I'm not going to die. Why? Because we are actually having that experience of being in the spiritual world. And I think myself that I'm actually under illusion that this body, which is made of 5 elements, is myself, and I'm not going to die anytime, and I make all the arrangements here for a happy living. But the problem is, whatever experience you are getting, it is true, but it is not available here. It is available in the spiritual world. That one point we are forgetting, and we are trying to make all the adjustment within this material world itself, and thinking that whatever I am believing, it will come true. That is the problem. But actually, this experience, it is there. Whatever we are desiring, that is also actually there, but not here. It is there in the spiritual world. This material world is upside down tree. That means whenever a person kept upside down, he will not be able to feel comfortable. So in this material world also, every time there is problem. Padam padam yad vipadam netesham. When we take to Krishna consciousness, vipadam na tesham. Otherwise, padam padam vipadam. This vipada, it keeps coming. Because of this karma, the bondage that we have because of our previous activities, the karma or the reaction to our activities, it is keep coming. Sometimes we feel happy, sometimes we feel sad, and we try to become happy all the time, and it is never going to happen because we are in this material world. This material world is meant for reforming the people, reforming the living entities. And if we think that this material world is for my enjoyment, then you will never become happy. Then how you can become happy? Understand that this material world is created by the Lord himself, and for the fulfillment of our material desire. And for the fulfillment of material desire, a person has to work, and he has to get the that result, or he should get qualified for gaining those results. For that, he has to work very hard. And then all the bondage begins. When we work hard, we get attached to the result of the activity. Because of the attachment, we get even more activities, and we get more and more times of birth. Like that, punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. We keep birth and dying. There is no end. But what is the solution? One has to cut off this material bondage. The main root cause is the desire. The reflection is happening in the desire. So if you don't have material desire, then this material world is not present for you. Even though you are in this material world, everything will be spiritual. You will get the spiritual experience even though you are in the material world. That's what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Mama Janmani Janmanishware Bhavatat Bhakti Rahaitu Kitvai. He's not asking for liberation. He's just he's happy within this material world itself. But as long as he is present in this material world, he needs the association of devotees and the devotion to Lord Krishna. So a devotee, wherever he is in Vrindavan. Even the Prabhupada was going to all over the world, he was carrying the Vrindavan in his heart. So the solution is Asanga Shastrena Dhridena Chitva. You cannot make the desire into zero, because nobody can become desireless. Desire is the nature of living entity. But the solution is you have to dovetail the desire. A person may be having so many desires, but if he is able to dovetail his desire for the service of the Supreme Lord, then his life will be successful. So that is what Krishna is telling here, the solution for the problem. Asanga shastrena dhridena chitva nirmana moha jita sanga dosha adhyatma nitya vinivritta kama dvandvair vimuktaye sukha dukkha sanyair gacchantya mudha padamavyayam tat. Those who are free from false prestige, illusion, and false association, who understand the eternal, who are done with material lust, who are freed from the dualities of happiness and distress, and who, unbewildered, know how to surrender unto the Supreme Person, attain to that eternal kingdom. To get out of the entanglement of this strong banyan tree of material life, one must surrender to Krishna. As soon as one surrenders unto Krishna, one becomes detached automatically from this material extension. So this is the solution for escaping this material cage, this material world, how one can come out of this bondage. Now Krishna is explaining the spiritual world. If you want to go to spiritual world, leaving this material world, then we must have some idea how this spiritual world will be. Otherwise, why we aspire for going there? Unless we know that there is something called spiritual world, and all the problems that we see in this material world does not exist in the spiritual world. For that, Krishna is explaining about how is the spiritual world. He is just giving some glimpses of the spiritual world here. This is from the text number 6. Na tadbhasayate suryo na shashanko na pavakaha yadgatva na nivartante tadhama paramam mama. That supreme abode of mine is not illuminated by the sun or moon, nor by fire or electricity. Those who reach it never return to this material world. Once a person goes back to Godhead, he will not come back. He will eternally live there. And there is no problem of birth, death, old age, disease, or this tapatraya of adhyatma, adhyatmika, adibhautika, adidaivika. All these things are not present in the spiritual world. So by hearing this, we have to get captivated by the information that Shastra or Bhagavad Gita is giving, because we all are aspiring for eternal happiness. I want to become happy always, but that is not possible. That is not happening here. But where it is actually available, there I should go. So by going to the spiritual world, we can put a full stop to all our problems that are present within this material world. Anybody would like to read can raise their hand. Penaja, Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Why should we pay the electric bill? What is the foolishness? Why should we pay the electric bill? Go there and live there. There is no need of no tat bhashyate. It is the spiritual world. It is not lighted by the sun, moon, because everyone is effulgent. Every planet is effulgent. So therefore, there is no need of these things. There is no ignorancy. There is no scarcity. There is no miserable condition.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So this is something we cannot imagine in this material world. Everything is having self-luminous. Everything is effulgent. There is no need of having a light. You don't need sun or moon or electricity or any source of light. This is exactly opposite to this material world. In this material world, something comes into existence, it grows, and then it will produce some byproducts, then dwindles, then it will get destroyed. This is like a cycle. It keeps going on. But in the spiritual world, there is no creation of living entity. The living entities are eternally present. This is inconceivable. How can somebody be always present? That is what Prabhupada, that is what Krishna says in first chapter of Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. There was no time when I was not there, you were not there, or all these people who are around us were not there. We are all eternally existing. Natvevaham jatunasam natvam neme janadipa na chaiva na bhavishyama sarve vayam ataparam. There was no time that I was not existing, you were not. That means all the time you are there. In the past also you are there. In the present also you are there. In the future also you will be there. There is no destruction of the soul. The soul never gets destroyed. The soul never gets created. It is always existing, ever existing. Then why do we see this birth and death? It is only the acceptance and rejection of this material body. The body takes birth and body will be dying, but not the soul. But this is very difficult to understand. But even though we are in this material body at this present moment, still we are thinking that we will be eternally present and we make all the arrangements for our happiness. It shows that actually we have the experience of spiritual world, but we have forgotten it, and unknowingly we think that we are trying to become happy within this material world. We are trying to get those experiences in the spiritual world within this material world itself. Gayatri Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Why should you pay the electric bill? One should be captivated by this information. He should desire to transfer himself to that eternal world and extricate himself from this false reflection of reality. Bhagavad Gita 15.6. Purport.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. So in the text number 7, Krishna explains, Mamaivamsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatanaha mana shashtani indriyani prakritistani karshati. We all are the part and parcel of Lord Krishna. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the 6 senses, which include the mind. So how we are entangled here? We have this material body, and the soul is coming from the spiritual world, and the body belongs to the material world. So it creates an incompatible situation. But in the spiritual world, everything is spiritual. So by understanding this information, we should get captivated. That means we should desire to go there. And once we transfer to that spiritual world, then we don't have to come back to this material world, and one can live there eternally, peacefully. Now, how this living entity, even though they are part and parcel of Lord Krishna, they get transmigrated from one body to another. That is explained in the text number 8. Shariram yadavapnoti yatyapyutkramati shvaraha grihitvaitani sanyati vayur gandhani vashayat. The living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another, as the air carries aromas. Thus, he takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. Here, analogy is given, the body to the air. The air is carrying some kind of aroma. It may be good or bad. It is like the karma that we are accumulating within this material world. The different kinds of body that we get based on the karma that we are performing. But actually, this body doesn't belong to the living entity, the soul. The soul is free from this all entanglement. But for some time, it will carry this material body. Similarly, the air which is flowing or which is moving around this, whatever the aroma is there, it is carrying it for some time. It is not eternally present in the air, because the air doesn't have the smell. The smell is the component of earth. If you see the analogy, the analysis of 5 elements, the earth has smell and water has taste. The fire has the form, air has the touch sensation, and sky is having the sound, that is the vibration. in the sound. So these are the characters of different elements. So air, it doesn't contain the smell, and it is the nature of this earth. All kinds of smell will be there. But when the air is passing over this, either the fragrant flower or pungent any material, it will carry that smell for some time. And whoever comes in contact with that air, they will also feel the presence of that material. But it actually, that doesn't belong to the air, but it looks like the air has got contaminated. But the contamination, it is actually doesn't belong to the air. After, when the air moves for some more time, it gets separated. Similarly, the soul, when it is having the bondage of karma activity, it will be entangled in this material world within some body. And when it is free from all the material activities, the reactions, then he will be free from the body, the material body. But the problem is, when we are within this one body, we will create more and more karma, more and more reaction, more and more bodies. So the cycle goes on. There is no end to it. So what are the senses that we have in our body which connects us to the external world? That is here given, the 9th text. Shrotram chakshu sparshanam cha rasanam ghranam cha adhishtaya manaschayam vishayanupasevate. The living entity, thus taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, and sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects. Just like the air carrying the aroma, the living entity gets a different body. But the living entity, the jiva, the soul, it has nothing to do with the material body. It is not his own property. It is the property of the material nature, material energy. It is given for him for certain period of time, then it will be taken back. And as long as the living entity is present within this body, it will be having these facilities: chakshu, ghranam, grasanam, shrotram, sparshanam. Through this, the living entity will create more and more activities, and it will get more and more entanglement. Now the problem is getting entangled using the senses for sense gratification. And the solution is to use the same senses in the service of the Lord, Hrishikena Hrishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchyate, perform devotional service and go back to Godhead. That is explained in the text number 9. Anybody would like to read can raise their hand. Gurunath Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Once placed in some particular kind of body, he comes under the control of nature because the body, being matter, acts according to the laws of nature. At that time, the living entity has no power to change that law. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Continue, Prabhu.
Still not visible, Prabhuji. Suppose an entity is put into the body of a dog. As soon as he is put into the body of a dog, he must act like a dog. He cannot act otherwise. And if the living entity is put into the body of a hog, then he is forced to eat stool and act like a hog. 13.21 purport. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. So when a living entity is put in a particular kind of body, he has to act accordingly. All the training will be already given for the soul before coming to the particular womb of a mother, and he will act accordingly. If you see the animals, among animals, some of the nature, it is already present at the time of birth itself. Either if you see a deer or a cat or a dog, by birth itself, they will have certain kind of activity, the nature that it has, that is originally a quality of that particular living entity. So how is this possible? It is by nature. The nature itself will make that arrangement And once a person gets into that particular body, he has to act according to that only. If he gets a dog, he has to bark. And if he is a hog, then he has to eat the stool. There is no escape. One has to act according to the body that he gets. That is 9th shloka. In the 10th shloka, Utkramantam stitam vapi bunjanam va gunanvitam vimudhananu pashyanti jnana chakshushaha. Now, a vimudha, a person who is foolish, he will not be able to understand all this, whatever told in Bhagavad Gita. The foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature. But one whose eyes are tainted with the knowledge can see all these things. So that is why we should learn Bhagavad Gita. We should get the instructions from the Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. By having this, we can understand what are the things that are going around us. Otherwise, we will be like another animal in this material world. We will not be able to understand anything. What is the cause of my suffering? Why am bound in this material world? All these things we cannot understand. So only a person who is having the knowledge, he can understand. Yatanto yoginaschainam pashyantyatma anyavastitam yatanto prakrityatmano nainam pashyantya chetasaha. The endeavoring transcendentalists who are situated in the self-realization can see all this clearly. But those whose minds are not developed and who are not situated in self-realization cannot see what is taking place through the, though they may try. What are the things that we have to understand? Yadadityagatam tejo jagadbhasayate khilam yachat chandramasi yachagno tattejo vidhi mamakam. The splendor of the sun, which dissipates the darkness of this whole world, comes from me. And the splendor of the moon and the splendor of fire are also from me. Gama vishya bhutani dharayamyahamojasa pushnami chaushadhi sarva somo bhutva rasatmakaha. I enter into each planet, and by my energy they stay in orbit. I become the moon and thereby supply the juice of life to all vegetables. Aham vaishvanaro bhutva praninam dehamashritah pranapana samayuktaha pachamyannam chaturvidham. I am the fire of digestion in the bodies of all living entities, and I join with the air of life, outgoing and incoming, to digest the 4 kinds of foodstuff. In the beginning, 10 and 11, it is told that all the living entities who are ignorant, they will not be able to understand. And 12, 13, 14 explains how Krishna is the maintainer of everyone. What we have to understand from Shastra, 2 things we have to understand. One is how we have bound in this material world, and another one, how we are maintained in this material world by Lord Krishna himself. By understanding these 2, we can escape from this material entanglement. Now, text number 12 says that the external needs, whatever is there for living in this material world, it is all supplied by the Lord himself. For a peaceful living, we need light, we need air, we need food. All these things, it is supplied by the Lord himself. Yadaditya gatam tejo, the fire, the warmth, whatever is there in the environment, that is given by the Aditya, that is the sun. The splendor that is present in the sun is Krishna himself. Yadaditya gatam tejaha, that teja is given by Krishna, which dissipates the darkness of this whole world. Imagine if there is no sun, what will happen to this world? Nothing can exist. Because the whole creation, it is happening or it is moving because of the sun. This earth is rotating around the sun, and it is gaining so much of energy, and because of which everything is happening, everything is possible within this world. If you see, if you analyze, the sun is the cause of each and every activity that we are doing. The plants, they are producing food, it is because of the sun, the photosynthesis that it will do. And because the plants are producing the fruits, we are able to eat that fruits, vegetables, and the plants. Because of that, the living entities can exist. And if the living entity is a carnivorous, it is eating the herbivorous animals only. So then again, it is depending on the plants, which are depending on the sun. The river is flowing because of the sun. The sun evaporates the water and it will pour the rain, and because of the cloud formation. So rain, that means the river is flowing because of the sun. And now we are able to see this electricity. It is because of the sun. Why? Because the source of the energy, what we are producing, it is from the sun itself. Either you can use hydraulic energy or the coal or any the thermal energies. It is all formed because of the sun. Either directly or indirectly, everything is coming from the sun. And that teja, the warmth, what is it called? The light, that is the splendor, which is there in the sun, that is coming from the Lord himself. So externally, the Lord is supporting us. Jagat Bhasayati Akhilam. Yat Chandramasi Yachagnav Tattejo Vidhi Mamakam. The light that is present in the moon, that is also Lord himself. The splendor of the moon and splendor of the fire, which is all coming from the Lord himself. Okay. Now, the Lord has made this world and he has given sun and moon, because of which all these things are happening. The food is being created. But is it enough? It is not enough. We are eating because of Krishna only. Only if you keep the food in front of us or in front of living entity, they will not eat. The food should have some taste. That taste, if it is not there, then we cannot eat. Come enough, you can eat if there is no salt, if there is no chili, or there is no, it is completely tasteless, we cannot eat. And that taste is also given by the Lord himself. I enter into the planet and by my energy, they stay in orbit. I become the moon and thereby supply the juice of life to all vegetables. All the planets are remaining in orbit because of the Lord himself, and he has given the sun. And the juice of life that is present in the vegetables, if the moonlight doesn't fall on the fruits and vegetables, they will not get the taste that we eat. So that taste is also given by the Lord himself. He has kept the food and he has made a reason for us to eat it. And that is also not enough. Even after eating also, he only does everything. He will enter into our stomach as a Vaishwanara Agni, and he will only digest it. I am the fire of digestion in the bodies of all living entities. And I join with the air of life, outgoing and incoming. That is the breathing also happening because of Krishna himself. What is happening here? The food that we eat, if you see the modern medical science, what it says, when we eat something, it finally converts into glucose. And when it reaches the cell, to produce the energy, you need oxygen. And that oxygen also is coming from the Lord himself. The outgoing and incoming air. Because of that, he is digesting the 4 kinds of food that is present in the form of the food that we are eating. So everything is done by the Lord. Then what you are doing? We think that I am the doer. I do like this. I do this. I do that. All these things are we think, but actually we are not doing anything. We are just living at the cost of the Lord. Now, if you see here, Bhakti is given more important. That means if you do Bhakti, you can get liberated from this material world. And if you are not devoted to the Lord, if you have material desires, a person eternally gets entangled within this material world. It is not possible to come out of this problem. Now, what is the need of Vedas then? Why Veda is given? The real purpose of Veda is given in the next shloka. Anybody would like to read can raise their hand. Yeah, Mataji, you can read.
As already explained, the Lord in his incarnation as a Vyasadeva compiled the Vedanta Sutra. Here the Lord is giving, in the summary, the contents of the Vedanta Sutra.
Thank you, Mataji.
Right.
Hare Krishna. Sarvasya chaham hrudi sannivishto matta smritir jnanam apohanam cha vedeshta sarve rahameva vedya vedanta krit veda videva chaham. Krishna is the maintainer that we have already understood, and he is the one who gives the knowledge within our heart. Because of him we remember, because of him we forget. Our remembrance and forgetfulness, it is both are needed in this world. Because if you don't forget certain things, it is not possible to live. If you remember everything, even within this lifetime itself, people are there who cannot forget some of the incidents that happens within their life, and they commit suicide because of some negative thinking, or they cannot come out of this shock. They will not be able to live anymore. So the forgetfulness is also needed for a happy life to live in this material world. So that forgetfulness is also coming from the Lord, and the remembrance that is needed for our living, it is also coming from the Lord. And all the Veda, whatever is there, final conclusion of Veda is to understand the Lord. Who is the Lord? Who is our maintainer? Who is taking care of us? We should understand him. And that is the purpose of Veda. Vedanta krit Veda videva chaham. Krishna is the one who made this Veda, and Krishna is the one whom we have to understand through this Veda. So that is the purpose of Vedanta or Vedanta Sutra. Now, what this Vedanta Sutra says, that is explained in the next 3 shloka, and this is called Trishloki Gita. You might have heard Chatushloki Bhagavad Gita, Chatushloki Bhagavata. Here, this 3 shloka is called Trishloki Gita, which gives the essence of Vedanta Sutra in 3 shlokas. So, what are the 3 shloka? Here, it explains the 3 kinds of living entities. द्वाविमौ पुरुषौ लोके क्षर अक्षर एव च क्षरा सर्वाणि भूतानि कूटस्थो अक्षर उच्यते. There are 2 classes of being, the fallible and the infallible. In the material world, every living entity is fallible, and in the spiritual world, every living entity is called infallible. So there is fallible living entity and infallible living entity. Who are the fallible living entity? That is this Patita Atma or Baddha Jiva. We all are bound to this material world. So we all are coming under this Kshara. And who are the Akshara? Those living entities who are in the spiritual world. They all are called as Akshara. That is, they are infallible living entities. And beyond this Kshara and Akshara, that is the living entity within this material world and the living entity in the spiritual world, beyond these 2 people, these 2 kinds of people, there is a 3rd person, that is Uttama Purushastvanya Paramatmyetyudahritah Yo Lokatrayam Avishya Bibhyartavyaya Ishwaraha. Besides these 2, there is the greatest living personality, the Supreme Soul, the imperishable Lord himself, who has entered the 3 worlds and is maintaining them. That is the Lord himself. So Kshara living entity, Akshara living entity, and the 3rd one is the Purushottama, that is the Lord himself. And because of that, this chapter is also called as Purushottama Yoga. That is to understand the Purushottama, the Lord, Supreme Personality of Godhead. These 3 people, the 3 shloka are explaining these 3 things. The Lord is entering the heart of each and every living entity as Paramatma. The 18th shloka says, Yasmat Sharamati Toham Aksharadapi Chottama Atosmi Loke Vedecha Pratita Purushottama. Because I am transcendental beyond both the fallible and infallible, and because I am the greatest, I am celebrated both in the world and in the Vedas as that supreme person. Here the word comes Purushottamaha. Atosmi loke vedecha pratita Purushottamaha. Nobody can become God. Nobody is equal to God. God is always God. The Lord's position is always present. That is why it is called as Purushottama. Purusha means the person. He is always a person. He is not impersonal. And he is a Uttama Purusha. He is the highest person. That is, he is beyond the Kshara and Akshara. The living entity who are fallen in this material world and the people who are in the spiritual world, he is beyond these two kinds of people. And he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Purushottama. Anybody would like to read can raise their hand. Gayatri Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Trishloki Gita 15.16 to 18. Besides these two, there is the greatest living personality, the Supreme Soul, the imperishable Lord Himself, who has entered the three worlds and is maintaining them. Bhagavad Gita 15.17.
Continue, Mataji.
Because I am transcendental, beyond both the fallible and the infallible, and because I am the greatest, I am celebrated both in the world and in the Vedas as that Supreme Person. Bhagavad Gita 15.18.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
So whoever knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead without doubting is the knower of everything. That is the 9th. Yo mamevam asammodho janati purushottamam sa sarvavid bhavajati mam sarvabhavena bharataha. One should submissively hear from Bhagavad Gita that these living entities are always subordinate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anyone who is able to understand this according to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, knows the purpose of the Vedas. So that is the purpose which is explained in the 15th shloka. The purpose of Vedas. He therefore engages himself in full devotion service to me, O son of Bharata. So in this chapter, the first 5 verses describe the process of freeing oneself from this weakness of heart, and the rest of the chapter from 6th to the end, it is explaining the Purushottama Yoga. That is about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So what are the things we learned today? Presented the overview of this 15th chapter and Banan Tree analogy and the meaning of Purushottama Yoga. Anybody would like to read can raise their hand. Gurunath Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare
As long as a living entity is in his dark material world, he is in conditional life. But as soon as he reaches the spiritual sky by cutting through the false perverted tree of this material world, he becomes liberated. Then there is no chance of his coming back here. In this conditional life, the living entity considers himself to be the lord of this material world. But in his liberated state, he enters into the spiritual kingdom and becomes an associate to the Supreme Lord. There he enjoys eternal bliss, eternal life, and full knowledge. 15.6 purport. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. So with this, we have come to the conclusion of today's session. Anybody has questions, they can raise their hand and ask the questions. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Gurunath Prabhu, you have any question?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, attendance link is not shared.
I think it is shared already.
Not this.
Okay, Ganeshan Prabhu.
Ganeshan Prabhu is not there.
This Chinnaswamy Ganeshan, it's same, no, Prabhuji?
No, he is different, Prabhuji.
Yeah. Gunashri Mataji has already shared, no? Attendance link.
It is not there in chat, Prabhuji.